Hi, everyone. I'm Sam Eckmann of Gold Derby. With me is Brian Armstrong and Hayes Baxley of Secret of the Whales from Disney Plus. And this series has a really incredible scope in what you were able to achieve across these 4 episodes. You're both nominated at the Emmys for cinematography. And I would just love, this could be a very big answer, but if you could just walk us through what is a typical camera setup for a shoot like this, because each sequence just seems to incorporate so many different types of cameras and different types of shots. So what was a typical setup for you guys?
Yeah, well, I think you've nailed it. There's no real typical setup. It kind of depends what we wanted to get at the time, what behavior we're trying to capture, what the whales were, whether in the Arctic or the Antarctic or in one of the many tropical locations we visited. So we did have some go-to stuff, and some of the stuff we created, and Hayes really led the charge on this. Some specialized sort of jibs and gyro stabilized cameras with sort of long lenses so we're working on boats a lot. So we wanted to be down at the level of the whale as much as we could when we're doing topside. And so we made sure that our cameras were almost sometimes like touching the water, and they were sometimes very far away because we didn't want to disturb the whales. So coming up with just the right kind of rig really depended on what we were trying to shoot. And that's even before we got into the underwater stuff, which is a whole nother ball game. But Hayes might be able to talk a little bit more about some of the things we created for the series.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's the thing about a series like this, and in any series working on the ocean, is it's nothing just off the shelf. Everything has to be built and designed. You're working in some of the harshest conditions that you would ever imagine taking a camera, whether it's just on the ocean, drones in the air, or underwater. They're all like, teetering on this kind of delicate edge of where you can flood a camera or lose a camera. So we ended up designing a lot of specialty equipment. We used a lot of drones. We found in the series, drones are an amazing way to capture unique behavior and spend time with the whales. And then from there, we end up using a gyro stabilized system that'll hold a 50 to 1000 millimeter lens. And we have it hanging off the boat with this huge jib arm. And it ends up being just a very elaborate, complicated system to run, but it really allows us to peer into the world of these whales. So yeah, lots of specialty gear, lots of time working with engineers and designers building custom mounts for cameras and new ways to get these cameras closer to the whales.
Yeah.
At one stage we had a system that Ernie Kovacs, one of our great underwater guys, came out with on the fly in Antarctica, where we wanted to get in the middle of some of the bubble net feeding that the humpbacks were doing down there without disturbing them. So he created a rig of a camera that would hang from a drone. So the drone could be way up in the sky, coming down onto a tether to the camera, which we could very quickly find out where the whales were going to emerge, and then drop the camera in right by them and get some really intimate, more close-up stuff. But yeah, every situation required something a little different.
Yeah, I think the bubble feeding shot with the humpbacks is one of my favorite shots in the whole series. I'm from New England, so humpbacks are probably the first whale I ever saw. So I felt very familiar there. But was there, when you're thinking of a series like this, and you want to capture the feeding, do you set out with a shot in mind beforehand, or is it just sort of looking at in the moment what the animal is?
Yeah, people ask that a lot, because you go out with the shot list in mind, and then on day one you rip it up. Because you put the best people in the right place at the right time with the best gear, and then you just kind of crossing your fingers, because at the end of the day, it's how much of the whale's going to let you into their world. Because when you go out, you have to remember that if we're shooting underwater, we need sunshine, we need no wind, we need smooth waters, we need the whales to show up, we need the clarity of the water to be good enough to get something, and then we need the whales to hang around and actually do something that is worthy of the show. So you get to the right spot where you increase your chances, but in the end, it's like, are the whales going to give us this gift? And the real blessing of the show was that they gave us these incredible gifts again and again and again. And we were in Antarctica, for example, excuse me, when we were in Antarctica, I really wanted a shot a humpback. You know, they sleep at the surface for 40 minutes, a couple of hours at a time. And you can see them just lying there, like floating at the top. And I wanted a shot of a whale's eye opening as it woke up. So Ernie, again, we put it in a dry suit, you know, in these frigid waters, snuck out to this whale. We dropped him in the water about 200 yards out, and he crept up slowly to this sleeping humpback, which is around about the time where I thought this could be a really bad idea, because humpbacks have the largest pectoral fins of any whale. They're covered in barnacles, you know, and they're strong. They could take your head off if you woke up and, you know, cranky, as they may do. And he got there and just sort of got down to the right sort of level, just under the water, and just waited. And we did that 3 times. And every time when these whales woke up, you know, we got the eye shot and they saw Ernie, they wanted to play. And we got some of our best stuff, because like, oh, what's this strange creature? And they're such gentle giants that they would just swim around and enjoy the company. I don't know how else to express it. You know, their curiosity was incredible. And we got some fantastic stuff just by them coming to us and giving us these gifts in the sea.
Yeah. The one of my favorite shots too is the sperm whales, the feeding sequence, because I had certainly never seen that on a show before, and it again incorporates so many different cameras at water level, deep under the water, aerial shots. Are you trying to record all of that at once, or is it sort of compiled from different encounters and with different angles?
Yeah, again, on the I mean, no one had seen that before, by the way. That was a scientist up until this footage didn't know how sperm whale calves suckled, because the mothers have these inverted nipples. So I was like, how does a sperm whale get milk? You know, they're mammals, they milk. And that footage where you can see the baby sort of putting its jaw in, and then the milk is like cottage cheese sort of jettisoned out, is the first time scientists had realized, oh, that's how it's done. So that was shot by a great underwater cinematographer called Steve Denise. And to get into those whales and not disturb them, it's all free diving. So there's no tank. So these guys are holding their breath for 3, 4, maybe 5 minutes at a time, going down at depth and being with the whales and capturing this sort of incredible footage. And at topside, yeah, we usually have someone we've got 2 people. Sometimes there's a drone in the air. Sometimes there's always a gyro stabilized camera we have on the boat wherever possible. So it is a combination. Sometimes we're working on really small boats and we can't have many people. I think our average crew size was 5 people or less. So we're a very small sort of nimble team. So it's just a question of how many hands we can have. When something's happening though, you've got to be ready and you want to cover it from every angle possible. Yeah.
Brian, you're also, you were the showrunner and, directing, writing this. Did you approach it with a certain tone or look in mind, or how much of that has to sort of change on the fly based on what you're capturing?
Yeah, my co-director and writer, Andy Mitchell, and I spent many long hours talking about how do we make every shot a masterpiece? Because that was really our goal. We wanted to get the action, but then a lot of it's in post. Once we had this incredible materials, like how, what's the narrative we're weaving here that is really going to allow us to make the most of what we captured. So it's not like a feature film where you can write everything and then you go shoot it and then you put it together. And obviously with features, it's even much more complicated than that. But we are, as we go, we're creating these, like the sleeping whale I was talking about. We didn't know we were going to get that when we went down there. It wasn't even on our shot list. But once we were down there in Antarctica on a small boat for 7 weeks, and was like, okay, this is something it's worth getting. People don't realize or understand that these whales are sleeping like us. Sometimes they have their calves with them. So we're creating the narrative as we go in a lot of cases, so we can lean into the best footage and behavior that we have.
And Hayes, I'm curious, is there any particular shot in there that you're really happy and proud that you were able to get in, something that was just sort of spur of the moment that was able to sort of miraculously get in there?
Yes, I mean, so many, and that like Brian was saying, it's amazing when you spend weeks at a time looking for whales, waiting for whales to do something, and there's so many times that you go out on the sea and you spend all day after day, and maybe you just see a whale blow in the distance, and that's like maybe all you get And there are these moments where, it's amazing where sometimes these sequences come together in just a few short hours or less, where you can spend weeks at sea and then all of a sudden everything just happens. And I think that happened for us with belugas. And it was a really amazing experience. We spent weeks out in just like incredibly tough, challenging conditions, bad water visibility, bad conditions, always raining. And then you put on top of that, these belugas were incredibly shy, wanted nothing to do with us. And there was one day, it was after a storm, and right after the storm, the seas were really calm, really glassy, and the belugas had been kind of forced offshore. And for whatever reason, something changed. And all of a sudden, it was like, okay, the behavior of these belugas changed. Their interaction with us changed. And we had just amazing, magical hours where the belugas were curious about us. And then we were able to film lots of behavior, and the belugas were interacting with each other, and the wind and the sea conditions lined up. And you're able to, shoot an entire sequence in maybe a number of hours that you've been waiting for weeks for this small weather window and for the animals to do what you were hoping they would do. And those are the moments. There's a lot of the stuff, a lot of sequences in the Beluga Hour, I think, were like that, where it was just a lot of hard work, a lot of working in the Arctic, and then just waiting for these moments.
Yeah, it's really, to add to that, sometimes it's a game of just having nerves of steel, because we say that most of our sequences we get in a day, but it takes us a month to get that day. So did I just lose you?
We got you, Brian.
Oh, you got me? Sorry. Oh, I think my old phone's dying apparently.
Back.
So we usually get what we want in terms of a sequence in a day, but it can take a month to get that day. So usually it's the last day when things come together. So it's just patience, getting in the rhythm of the local feel of things, feeling the animals, getting to know their behavior, and then it eventually sort of comes together. But it's a big investment, and you got to have nerves of steel waiting for that one day.
Yeah, I was curious about that investment because you traveled to everywhere, it seems. Just one episode with sperm whales takes you from Dominica to Azores to Sri Lanka. How long does it take to film a series like this?
Yeah, well, we were in production for about 3 years, but our shooting window was less than 2, which means a lot of this stuff is seasonal, and we only got sort of one shot at it. So it was sort of make or break to meet the deadlines we've been giving. So it was pretty tricky. We were pretty lucky that we had Brian Scarry, who's a great underwater stills photographer for Geographic, who's featured prominently in the series, and people like Brian and scientists in particular who had a lot of local intel that were willing to share. So we got a little jump start on where to go and where we could, where we're going to have the most chance of getting what we needed. But it really was, the actual shooting window was less than 2 years. It was about 18 months.
Yeah. Was there a desire to make each of those episodes feel sort of distinct? There's community, feels like it's a big theme in this series, like of the community of whales. We talk about them a lot in this interview as big groups or pods. And I'm wondering how that affected the way you captured them.
Well, there's many arcs that we were trying to weave in together. So there's this series-wide sort of themes, obviously this discovery that whales have culture. And that's new. Scientists, 15 years ago, that was like taboo. No scientist would mention that possibility. But the more they looked at it and were open to this suggestion, the more they discovered that, wow, there's no other word for it but culture. These animals are grieving for each other, they're teaching each other, they're passing on traditions. Each whale is different in different areas in terms of what it eats and how it behaves, and whether it's transient or local. So within that bigger theme for the series, each individual episode had its own way of approaching and looking at based on the whale species. Orca are very different to sperm whale, very different to humpbacks, very different to beluga and narwhal. So once we isolated, we made the show specific to a species, or beluga narwhal in one case is one hour, then it's how those whales operate within that cultural theme that let us know how to tell a story. They kind of told us, whether it's humpbacks, bubble net feeding or learning how to sing, and then having this incredible, like almost talent contest where one song emerges that they all start singing at once, and also on this epic journey where they don't eat for more than 6 months as they travel to the equator to have babies and back to Antarctica. That's very different for sperm whales who have to dive into these incredibly deep depths and find a ton of squid a day to feed themselves, and what they're teaching their young. So each arc, how we told the story, was really driven by the specific species and the culture of that specific species.
Well, before I let you both go, this is a series like this is obviously a very incredible and time-consuming undertaking. Secrets of the Whales has 3 Emmy nominations. What is it like seeing yourselves as nominees after putting in all of this time to create this on the water?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's been an amazing ride. It's so wonderful to see the series doing so well. There's the team at Red Rock. They were an incredible team, and the amount of hours of preparation and research that goes into a series like this is unbelievable. And the field crew for this one was a really amazing team, and spent countless hours at sea. And then just to see so many people excited about whales, it's been a really great ride so far.
Yeah, it's like a gift that just keeps giving in so many wonderful ways. From the whales out in the field was so wonderful. We put it together, we felt it was something special, and then to have this recognition is great. And especially for Red Rock's, we're a very boutique company, and we feel like we've been around 10 years. We feel like spent a lot of time saying, hey, we can do this stuff. But the default is, frankly, to go to BBC and Bristol, which is the hub of sort of natural history filmmaking. So to actually have the opportunity to show what we can do as a little company here in America, in Silver Spring, Maryland, and create this with of course, it's a collaboration. There's so many people who've gone in. We're down as cinematographers. We had 20 across the series, and we've had James Cameron helping us out at an EP level, and of course the people at National Geographic sort of guiding us as well. But it really gets down to what you get in the field, and that's where we feel like we excelled. And then to have this recognized like this is just so rewarding and fantastic. We're all still pretty giddy about it.
Well, it's incredible work. Congrats on your nominations, both. If you're out there watching, subscribe to Gold Derby. And Brian Hayes, thank you so much. Best of luck at this season. It was great to talk to you.
Thanks, Sam. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye.